God's Bright Kids, a show by angelarts.biz. Here on this podcast show, you will find encouragement in the midst of the challenge of autism. We will share stories of how God works in the midst of those affected by autism, as well as how He uses ordinary people to do extraordinary things. Because there is hope, there is life, there is love in the midst of autism. And here is your host, Dana Susan Beasley.
I am your host, Dana Susan Beasley, and welcome back to God's Bright Kids. It's April 16th, 2024, and I am recording this show in Colorado Springs, where the weather is typically spring, sunny, but cool and breezy. So I am excited to share with you today 5 steps to unlocking creative genius in your autistic child. But before I share my thoughts about this, just to let you know, I am an author and I wrote a book called The Lost Art of Play, and specifically based on my experience with using play for my autistic child, who is now a grown-up of 23 years old, and also creating a play-based program called, or based on live action role play. So check that out at lostartofplay.com, or you can look in the link below. So let's get to the topic at hand. 5 steps to unlocking creative genius in your autistic child. So first of all, let me say, maybe you as a parent, maybe you're autistic yourself, and you wonder if your child or yourself can ever be independent. Is that going to work? And I want to encourage you that yes, it is possible. But maybe you need some help to launch your child, to launch yourself into a lifestyle of independence and a fulfilling and happy life. Now, I believe that every child, every person has a hidden gem within themselves that's waiting to be discovered and polished. And yes, that means I believe that autism is perfectly possible for those with autism to become independent and to flourish in this life. And so I'm going to give you my thoughts on 5 steps to becoming that, because especially in so many autistics, there is a vast resource in there that can be hidden. And so we'll talk about that. So, how can we support our loved ones so that they can pursue creativity and self-expression and live a fulfilling and flourishing life using the talents that God has given them? Well, here's the first step. Create a warm and loving environment. It's so essential to unlocking that creativity. There's something called defense mode that a young man named Danny Rady of AspergerExperts.com coined. I believe he coined it. And until that defense mode is taken care of, it's going to be hard to find that spark in them that needs to come out, because it can be buried by stress. And one of the best ways to help that is to make your home, or wherever you are, you could be a teacher, you could be a Sunday school teacher, to make that an inviting, loving, welcoming place. That is the foundation to build a positive relationship and to open communication between individuals to establish that trust. Because what I know, having raised my son from, he's now 23, is that trust is the currency that's going to make it work. And in order to do that, you have to have the environment and to give them the peace of mind that's going to alleviate stress. And part of that is giving them a place where they feel safe. For me, for my son, It's either in front of the computer, and yes, he can get into that too much. But there is value in letting an autistic work out their stress in a computer game. There is value in that. But like for my son, he likes to hang out in my bed during the day. That's his safe place. That's why I never make my bed. What's the point? But he's always liked to hang out in my bed. He takes naps there. He just, that's what he does. It's a very safe place to him, and that's fine with me. And I allow him to do that. So that's all part of creating that warm and inviting atmosphere. So that is the first step. And just to say a little more about it, while of course physical safety is important, but emotional safety is extremely vital. Giving them that emotional security, because if they feel threatened or unsupported, that's not going to help them. It's going to backlash. That's another reason why it's important to give them that atmosphere, to respect your child's feelings and value their opinions. Long ago when I first started homeschooling, I realized that, I couldn't just go in there like a dictator to my son who would be on the computer or whatever and say, you must come now. I needed to respect his boundaries and say, okay, in 15 minutes, we're going to start school. Or say things like, would you like to start school in 15 minutes or 30 minutes? Which gave him a choice. And of course, he would always choose the longer time. But he felt like he was in control. This is where one of my favorite resources ever for any kind of human communication is Love and Logic parenting education. That's where I learned that from. Your child, the person you're dealing with autism, or you yourself, if you are autistic, you have feelings, they have feelings, and those should be respected, and opinions should be valued, not dismissed. Does it mean that they're controlling your household? No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about having that kind of empathy and encouragement and embracing that to help them to feel connected to you and like they belong. And that starts with showing empathy. That's another thing I love about Love and Logic. It always starts with empathy. And then maintaining transparency in your actions. Not just, well, you do this because I told you so. That I don't think that works with any child, really. But especially not with an autistic one. They want to know these connections. Well, why is this and why is that? Or, like maybe with school. They don't get that studying these math problems right now is going to help them in their future with whatever career they want to take on. They don't get it. All they see is they hate math and they don't want to do it. So you have to give them those connections and give them a safe environment to do that. And that will create positive outcomes for you and the child or whoever it is that you're dealing with, even if it's yourself. So create a safe environment means that you're empathetic and that you're approachable. That you're also okay with saying, okay, I messed up. I don't know how many times I've said that to my son. I freak out about something and then I have to, I'm sorry, I was completely stressed out, to realize that you're not perfect and to let them see that you're not perfect. That takes some vulnerability and some transparency. So I never wanted and I never could keep secrets from my son. He's involved in every aspect of our lives, and he knows what's going on. I can't hide anything from my son. He knows, he has such an empathetic heart that he will know when something's wrong with me. And then just being available. I don't know how many times, and it still happens, that at midnight we start talking and we talk and we talk and we talk. And it's usually about something deep and philosophical. That's when he waxes philosophical. And before I know it, it's 2 a.m. in the morning, but I don't regret it because I have built my relationship with my son over those long talks. And, there's many times that I was the only one that he had to talk to. So that's part of building that loving home. And there's also difficult conversations where we've had to express anger or sadness or disappointment back and forth. And we've worked through them. Love is the foundation. And no matter what, there's always love there. And just saying that, believe me, I'm not the perfect mother. I definitely make mistakes, like I said before. But I knew that providing him this safe environment was the most important thing to us, both for him as an autistic person and so that he grows up being secure and being able to take those risks and to launch out on his own. So that's the first step, is to provide a loving environment and a safe environment. The second step is to encourage exploratory play. And this is something that I profoundly believe in, so much that I wrote a book about it, like I said, called Lost Art of Play. In fact, we practice this in our group that we run based on live action role play. Exploratory play is crucial to nurturing healthy child development. It's crucial to unlocking that creative genius in your child. I don't know how much time, oh my goodness, when my son was a little toddler, he used to spend all his time lining up his cars and trucks from one end of the room to another, and he would just scoot on his, little side, playing with each one and very meticulously advancing them, and he spent hours doing that. And I gave him that time. That was play for him, and I gave it to him. I didn't know that's stupid or you're so silly, why don't you do something else? No, I gave him the time to play, and he led his play, and I followed along and gave him the space to do it. So, and then the other thing that we nurtured from the beginning was his art. And it wasn't planned. It was just kind of this thing that we stumbled along. Is for some reason, Sam got into drawing maps of my parents' property. They had 35 acres. And so he and his dad would draw these maps. And then pretty soon they were drawing other things together. And then Sam at age 7 was drawing in 3D at age 7. And so I saw this, and that is what I nurtured, or one of the things that I nurtured. But it was nurtured starting with just play back and forth with his dad, drawing. I certainly couldn't do it. I can't draw in 3D. Are you kidding? Could draw stick figures, or barely. But we gave him that time. It was completely accidental. We had no idea. But we gave him the time. That is the most important thing. And then to let them explore their surroundings and engage with objects on their own terms. And of course, as long as they're safe, you don't want to, them to be handling poison or anything like that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about providing them safe opportunities for their cognitive growth that will spark their curiosity, to help them develop social skills, which was, that's a huge, tough thing. I know that my son was selectively mute. And so there were certain people that he didn't talk to. But the thing was that it was because of trust. Like my sister-in-law, he didn't talk to her for years. And she'd always say, why didn't he talk to me? Why doesn't he talk to me? What's wrong? And it turned out that she one day made a funny face at him, and that broke the ice. And so now they're great friends. And Sam loves his aunt. He wants to spend time with her. So that really helped him. And the other thing that I did, we used to go to a church that had a coffee shop, and so we'd get donuts. And at first, I was there doing the ordering. But then once I modeled it, then I would more and more let him take it over until eventually he could do the whole thing. And it was the same in like a restaurant. If we went to a restaurant, at first he couldn't do any of it. But now he does it all. And it took about, a couple years of this kind of phased in, first I'd help him, then I'd back away. And now he can talk to people. He can even fill out forms. The other day he bought something all by himself, and he went there, had to fill out some forms, had to do all the transactions, all that stuff. He's completely independent in that way. And it started from me just modeling it first and then letting him do it. And that, what play does is it sharpens their problem-solving abilities, and they learn to think critically about the world. So it's important to avoid hovering or directing too much. That's why I said I would model something and then I'd back off slowly. And then he would take it over and be comfortable. And then also offering materials that inspire creativity and exploration. I could tell Sam was very obsessed with cars and trucks, so I provided the cars and trucks for him to play with. He had train tracks. He just loved vehicles. And then there was the art. He could tell that he was early on very into that, so we enrolled him in a fine art school for an art class. And so he took that for several years. So, providing those kinds of items for them to explore is really important. And remember, not all learning has to follow a structured format. That's one of the downsides of today's culture, is everything has to be structured. Well, actually, you learn and play most when you're bored and when there's nothing else to do. The saying, necessity is the mother of invention. Well, in my day, of course, back in the 70s when I was a child, we didn't have video games and whatnot. And I watched TV, but I was more interested, especially in the summers, in being outside and exploring and playing and doing pretend play. So we didn't have this structured time. I don't remember running from one thing to another. And so that kind of unstructured play is just as beneficial as organized activities. I'm not saying organized activities aren't important, but they can be too much and too stressful. The key is to finding that balance. And you need to find the balance between safety and independence. Give your little explorer enough freedom to explore while ensuring a safe environment, and that will result eventually in being independent. So while play is definitely important to a young child, it's important to every single age, whether preteen, teen, young adult, or middle-aged like me, or elderly. Play is what makes life worth it. It brings the joy and motivation, brings a spark into people's lives. So whether, that could take on many forms, and it will grow and change as your child grows and changes, or if you're the autistic person listening, as you grow and change. For instance, I'm really into guitars. I've been playing guitar since I was 10, when my sister taught me how to play on a classical guitar. And back in the 90s, I had an Ovation. And I was really, really happy to have the Ovation, which is it was a guitar that was made in the 60s that has a round bowl on the back, completely different than a regular guitar. And I loved it. And then it got into disrepair, and being a mother and running two businesses, I've let my music go by the wayside, and I'm trying to get it back up. And I have an opportunity for a performance for a gig at an assisted living center. And that made me go, okay, I've got to get my guitar fixed. So I went to take it to the guitar store, and, they're estimating and all that. And while we were waiting, my son and I wandered into the acoustic room, and I fell in love with this guitar that has a beautiful inlay of a dove, and I just want that. In fact, after this, Sam and I are going to go and see if it's still there, and I'm just going to pay for it. And, part of me feels guilty. I should be spending money on ABC, but here's this guitar, and I know that I've outgrown this Ovation. It's not me anymore. And so I need to get this new one. And it's going to help me show up so much better on my performance and give me motivation. So our play does change over the years. It can be different. But instilling a joy of learning through play, that is a lifetime of exploration. And for me, the motivation of, playing on this guitar is extremely inspiring and thrilling to me. I'd do anything to get that if that's really what God wants. I'm trusting that if it's there, that He'll want me to get it. But this is all what's going to help unlock those hidden talents. For me, like this guitar, we saw it on Friday, it's now Tuesday, and I can't stop thinking about it. That says something. When your child, or if you yourself you can't stop thinking about something, then you've hit on some sort of passion or interest, and there's probably a hidden talent in there that needs to be brought up to the surface. So in our household, play is involved in everything we do. Even now that my son is 23, yes, we work hard. I always say, work hard, play hard. That's why we started a live action role-playing club. We started that back in 2017, where I've lost track because, COVID made it kind of funny, because I think we lost a year. But we were like on our 7th or 8th year. We're on our 5th or 6th summer camp. So we've been doing a lot of this for a long time, and a lot of the kids have been autistic themselves, and they have found our environment very welcoming and loving, and so we teach them sword fighting and acting and all this stuff through immersive play. I don't sit down and lecture, well, this is what LARPing is, and this is what a hilt is. No, I don't do that. So we teach them through immersive play, and it brings them out of the shell. It brought my son out of his shell, because I started it because back in 2017, he was spending excessive time in front of the computer and not being social at all to anybody, almost including me. And so we started this group to help him, and now it has helped him so much. He's my assistant, and he teaches the kids sword fighting. So that's the power of play. That's what it can do. And this is how I knew. Because years ago, I noticed that Sam was playing a medieval skirmish game. And he loved it. And so that's what gave me the idea to start a live action role-playing club that included ditch battling. That's what we call it. And then the other thing, our other area of play, I don't remember if I mentioned this in my other shows, but Sam got really into cryptozoology. And if you know what cryptozoology is, it's the study of animals that have not been classified scientifically. So one of those cryptids is Bigfoot. And so one night he asked me, he told me, Mom, I want you to go Bigfooting with me. And I thought about it. It sounded really scary, but there's a part of me that's very fascinated. I grew up in the 70s, so Bigfoot was a big part of the culture. And so I knew that I needed to get involved in his interests, and that's the other thing. You know, when you're trying to find that hidden gem and bring out that creative genius in your child, is to enter into their world. And that's another thing Danny Rady from Asperger Experts taught me. You know, enter into their world, play the computer games with them. And so that's how I did. I went, okay, well, let's do it. So we had a camper and we went camping in Bailey, Colorado, where there's a Sasquatch museum, a Bigfoot museum called Sasquatch Outpost. And we went out into the forest behind the campground, and I'll tell you, I was so scared, but I was hooked. And actually, Sam inspired me so much that I started thinking about book ideas. So I'm writing a novel. I started a YouTube channel. It's called Sasquatch Mom, or my handle is Squatch Mom. But my point is that your children, the person that you are dealing with that's autistic, and it could be yourself, they are a source of inspiration. And what you have to do is dig deep to find that, and you will be surprised at how much life they give you. They give back to you. That's what my son has done for me. And that's why, we play hard at Bigfooting. And several years ago, my son and I went to a town hall where locals shared their experiences with Bigfoot around the area of Bailey. And Sam had this burning feeling in him. I could tell he had to tell something. So he talked about these vocalizations he knew about, and nobody knew about it, and they were all fascinated. He spoke aloud in a group. Now, if you know anything about autistic children or autistic people, period, you know that is an amazing feat that he did. It was for Sam. And then not only that, but after the meeting, people were coming and asking him questions. I was stunned, and I knew at that moment that if nothing else, it was worth getting into cryptozoology, Bigfooting, just for that moment. All right, so play is obviously something I'm very excited about. Again, check out my book, Lost Art of Play, lostartofplay.com, but play is the foundation of finding these talents. And as a matter of fact, for me, the reason why the whole LARPing thing came about was because when I was a child, my third grade teacher read aloud to us The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So I was inspired, and then after that, we had this mesa in the back of our house, outside of our gate, and I would play Narnia with my friends in this mesa, and that's what we'd do. And so I taught that to my nieces and nephews, and they taught their siblings, who taught their siblings, until one of my nephews really caught on to it, and that was when kind of the whole LARPing trend started to come up, and he got into it, and then we talked one day, and we were like, why not start a LARPing club? So that's how that happened. It happened because of play, and because my third grade teacher inspired us with that book. All right, enough about play. I could go on and on and on. All right, the step 3, and I've already talked about this a little bit. Identify passions and interests. So this is a crucial part to figuring out, finding that hidden gem and bringing it to the surface so that eventually they can lead independent, flourishing lives. So you've got to understand what brings your child joy, what stimulates his curiosity or captures his attention. And you've got to give them those opportunities, like my third grade teacher reading The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So giving them different opportunities, that's going to influence their life choices, their career path, their hobbies, their relationships, how they spend their free time. And so you've got to be kind of a detective. And that's how I was with Sam. I'd be like, well, like I said, he's spending a lot of time playing these medieval skirmish games. Well, he sure does like cryptozoology. Okay, well, there's this Bigfoot museum out in Bailey. Let's go there. Let's go talk to him. And now we go to conferences all the time. In fact, we're supposed to go to one this weekend. And the proprietor and his wife has become friends. But, for instance, if you know that your son loves wildlife conservation, then those interests might dictate where you choose to travel. Maybe you do go out to these national forests and do a lot of camping. or you go out to national parks like Yellowstone or Yosemite, and you spend your time doing that. Or maybe your child is very good with languages. You could see this. So you give them that environment to explore those linguistic abilities. Maybe you go to a foreign country so that they're exposed to that. Just some ideas, totally two different things. So what does that take? It takes paying attention. It really takes paying attention to their obsessions and noting them, and then figuring out, okay, how can I translate that into a pursuit, both for them as a hobby and professionally? Now, I also noticed that my son spends a lot of time making maps, making highway interchanges, making whole towns and landscapes for games. And he uses this program called Blender. I don't even know what all it is, but I realized that he would be very good with 3D modeling. So last year we had an opportunity to get a job designing a custom home, a duplex, and my husband is an architect, and I haven't even delved into his side of it because he's also autistic, but we put in that contract that part of our job, part of what we would deliver is 3D modeling. And so Sam learned how to do it on the job. We bought the software SketchUp, and he did it on the job, and he did a fantastic job. In fact, right now, he's working on a tiny home, and we're going to sell those online. So I knew, because I observed what he was doing, that he would be good at 3D modeling, and that is going to give him a career. It already has. And I also noticed that with graphic arts, because I'm a graphic artist by trade, and so he has those same abilities, and he came to me several years ago and said, "Mom, I don't want a job." And he said, "I want to be an entrepreneur like you." And I said, "Great, all right, so this is what we can do." So I trained him to be a graphic artist. I taught him everything I knew, and he's done so far 2 book covers that are paid, and he's helped me. He's done some flyers for me and that kind of thing, and he does a fantastic job. He's so creative, and he just always blows my mind with it. So we're working on getting him more projects so that that's something he can do. So far he's working on something that he's buying something that's going to take a lot of his savings away. So, I said, okay, well then after this, we need to figure out some more jobs so that you can save money to buy a car. So that's our next goal. So all that to say, yes, it is possible to make your child, or for your child who has autism, or for you yourself if you're autistic, to be independent. It's a matter of helping your children discover those passions and interests. Now, it's not always easy. It's not always like right there on the surface. Like I said, you have to be a detective. And then there may be some challenges that you have to work through. I know that there was many when Sam was young, and I did things like metronome therapy. That really helped him. That got him through some really tough things that he was dealing with when he was young. So you've got to find what works for them. As the saying goes, when you met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. Not everybody responds to the same thing. And me personally, I'm not a fan of ABA, applied behavioral analysis, but, it might be your best call. You have to figure that out. That is up to you as a parent, or up to you as an individual. But remember that passions evolve over time, and also I saw a meme like this today, don't judge a person because of the season they're in right now. They may be, your child might be 9 or 10, and they just seem like they're not interested in anything, and you can't get them to do anything. But they will grow, and that's why nurturing that and helping them to overcome some of these challenges that comes with autism, like, say, sensory processing disorder, that's going to help uncover those gems eventually. Temple Grandin herself. Temple Grandin. If you haven't seen the movie Temple Grandin, I highly recommend it. But she was, I guess, on the scale, you would say severe when she was a child. But they worked through it. They found ways to help her until now. Of course, she is an amazing speaker, and she became an animal behaviorist, and she worked through so many obstacles, not just being autistic, but also being a woman in a very male-dominated field. But she did it. She broke through those barriers. She opened those doors, and that's what we got to do for our kids. We got to open those doors. And if you yourself are autistic, then you got to open those doors for yourself. And you got to believe that you're worth it, because you are. So that kind of exploration, really helping them to figure out their passions and interests, it is going to open those doors. It's going to open those doors to what's going to become their lifelong passions. So embrace that wholeheartedly. And, it's a journey. And think of it as a really fun journey to explore different territories, to take hold of that potential impact it could have on shaping the future path of your child or you yourself. So that is the third step. The fourth step is to provide the right tools for learning and exploration. So if you're going to unlock that creative genius, you've got to equip them. And so you've got to provide an effective learning environment and help them engage in learning. Now, for us, Sam went to private school in kindergarten and first grade, and it was a bust. It was so awful. It was really traumatic for Sam and for me. And so I started homeschooling him when he was in second grade. I almost said when I was in second grade. I don't think so. But from the get-go, I knew that I wasn't going to cry over homework for 3 hours a day like we had done in this private school. School was going to be different. School did not have to be what it was like in traditional school. And so we did unit studies, and I gave him a lot of time to explore on his own. And he learned more about dinosaurs, for instance. Like, that was the first thing that he learned on his own. He learned more about dinosaurs than I could ever teach him. And the thing is, he knows it. He remembers it. So if you provide the right tools, then you're not only delivering the really important information to them, but it's going to ignite their curiosity. And most of all, it's going to give them a lifelong love of learning. Because learning doesn't stop when you're 18 or 23 when you graduate from college, if you go to college. Learning should be a lifelong, joyful pursuit. And this is what I just naturally let my son do since he was in second grade. Once I realized how so very wrong this was for him to be in a traditional school environment. And just, every learner is unique. And that's why public or private school would not work for Sam. He doesn't learn in the traditional way. It's so crucial to offer diverse ways of learning. Montessori, that's what Montessori is based on. My mom actually used to be a Montessori teacher. But, you learn through different senses, and you find out, okay, what is their learning style? For Sam, I could tell it was kinesthetic, it was hands-on. That's why I liked unit studies, project-based studies. Like one time, we made a model of the tabernacle, and we'd read through an Exodus, and then we made it all together, because there's no way he could have done everything. Like, I made the curtains, and Travis helped with all the fences and stuff like that. But Sam did all of the different, he made the candlesticks and all these things, and we still have it to this day. It's such a neat project that we did. But provide a variety of resources, and again, create a welcoming learning environment where your child can thrive. And then there's so many educational technological advancements, digital tools like educational apps, online platforms, these can complement teaching methods. So, and then giving them time, like I said, for independent study. I learned that my son is autodidact, meaning he teaches himself. He pretty much taught himself all the way through school. And so I gave him a diploma based on that. Yes, I did some with him, but mostly he learned all on his own, and he learned way better. I mean, think about it. If you went to public school like I did, or a private school, and it was all about cramming for the test, and then you took the test, and 2 weeks later, could you remember any of the information? I know when I started teaching Sam in elementary school, I had to relearn all this stuff. It was like I'd been to school for the first time. So realize that being a self-learner is an absolute wonderful way to go, and just give them the tools to do that. And of course, especially if you're talking about the internet, make sure they're safe. And I would suggest having some sort of censoring device, or I don't know what they call them, but when your kids are younger, I think that's very important. So just that caveat, or however you say that. So the thing is that when you do this, they actually learn in a better way because they remember it, like I said. So that's going to help them flourish, and it's going to help them think outside of the box. Very, very important to give them that independence to launch into their lives when they become adults. All right, so the last step, and I need to wrap this up because Sam and I are going to go to the Guitar Center, and I'm just praying that that guitar is there. I'll let you know next week. Anyway, step 5 is recognizing progress and celebrating achievements. We're on a journey of achieving goals to find these hidden gems within your child or within yourself. And it is a hard process. It can be very challenging. So it's important to recognize progress along the way. And to do that no matter how small or insignificant it may seem. It's easy to become so focused on the ultimate destination. My family and I recently, we made a really big decision about where we ultimately want to be 5 to 6 years from now. It would be very easy to focus on that and not enjoy the ride, but we need to enjoy the ride on the way. And same with you and whatever circumstance you're in. So look for those small victories and acknowledge them. It's, and if you're on this journey yourself, then, pat yourself on the back. It's okay. That is a vital source of encouragement during difficult times. It'll only serve to motivate them. I think of last year. See, Sam, I wasn't really sure what to do because Sam had just taken the reins with his education, and there was really not much I could do with him. So we had this meeting, and he went over, or I asked him about everything he was studying in the last few years, and we went over it all, and I kind of estimated, okay, how many hours was this, and knowing that he's not going to go to college or have a job, which is fine with me, I just want to put this parentheses. It's okay if your child or you yourself never have a job and you become an entrepreneur. That is perfectly legitimate. Okay, had to get that out. Sorry. But, I began to write it all down and just kind of translate those into credit hours. And I said, yeah, let's graduate you. And so I created this diploma. I'm a graphic designer. So, yeah, I probably used a template too because sometimes I cheat like that. But yeah, so I created a diploma for him. I got this really nice case and for it, and then we had a little family ceremony. It was no big deal. I know he wouldn't have liked that. So just with all three of us, we did this, and then a few weeks later, we went down to Texas to visit his grandfather. And his grandfather doesn't know him very well, doesn't know much about autism. Doesn't know really, I think that he doesn't realize that his son has autism. Long story. But anyway, we go down there, and his grandfather asks him, so did you get some sort of certificate, meaning like a diploma? And Sam has this big grin on his face. Yep. But the thing is that I recognized that, and I celebrated him. And a year ago, I think a Facebook memory came up that I had made him an apprentice when he came to me and said, I want to be an entrepreneur. That's when I made him our apprentice. And a year had gone by to the day, and we were hiking, and we were going to go out for dinner. And so I said, okay, this is your celebration for being our apprentice. It's been a year now. So we celebrated that little milestone. It was kind of spur of the moment, but it was really fun. So, and for me, like this gig I have at this assisted living place, it's actually a paid gig. It doesn't pay that much, but that doesn't matter to me. But it's a dream come true, and I have to figure out how to make it work in a little over a month. And so I may have found this guitar. I don't think buying an amp is going to be too difficult. I talked to the organist at our church. He's going to let me borrow his sound equipment because I'm going to have to provide my own sound equipment. Everything is lining up, so I'm just praying that this guitar is going to be there. Anyway, but it's made me be more alive. I'm practicing more. My voice was almost destroyed by sleep apnea, and I've been getting it back, and I was playing piano today and singing, and it's so much better. And I'm so much happier because of it and so much more motivated. And that works the same way with your child. All right, so I know I rambled on a lot. I hope you found that helpful. In conclusion, unlocking the potential in your child, finding those open doors so that they could go through, that is your mission. And that should be shared with parents, homeschoolers, Sunday school teachers, educators, and the society. And if you yourself are the person walking through this, then I just want to say again, you're worth it to walk through this process. Every child has unique talents, abilities, and interests. Every person does. And it's crucial that we provide them that environment so that they can explore that and discover that and nurture that and grow that. And that's when the seeds of potential are already inside them. We just have to bring that to the surface and help it to grow and help it to flourish and figure out, okay, how can they translate this to a viable career that will provide them money? I mean, the truth is that many autistics are being sought out by like tech companies. It's not true that just because somebody has autism that they're going to be completely dependent on somebody for the rest of their lives. Yes, that happens and it's sad. But what I'm saying is, and I hope I'm saying this right, is going through this process and helping them to overcome those challenges like sensory processing disorder, selective mutism, social anxiety. That's going to help them unlock their hidden gems and to be able to translate that into a marketable skill, whether they do go to college and get a job or they become an entrepreneur. That's perfectly viable. But this does require patience and persistence. It involves a lot of trial and error. I know for us, I know that Sam and I have sleep apnea, so I tried these mouth guards with the dentist and all these exercises, like these tongue and chin exercises, and they were supposed to really help him in his cognitive abilities, but neither of us, especially Sam, could not adapt to using this mouthpiece. We could not keep up with all of the exercises required. And so that was a complete failure. But it helped us know what didn't work. And so sometimes that is just as valuable. And that happens. It's just a matter of, one, committing ourselves to nurturing your child's strengths while supporting their weaknesses with compassion. I know, like, I haven't talked about my husband much, but he's also autistic, Asperger's. And we didn't know it when we first got married. I didn't know this until 2008. I knew nothing about it. And so, he is very focused on his job as an architect, and that's what makes him really good at what he does. But he also can tend to go overboard on being thorough, and I have to help rein him back. And it's important for me to remember to do that with compassion, to help him in those moments of weakness that he has, but at the same time to see, this great strength he has of being an architect and what he does. So only then can we truly help unlock the immense potential residing within every young mind awaiting discovery. And then what we will find is that child, or you yourself, will flourish and be independent and launch their own lives. All right, so I have rambled quite enough, I think. It's been fun. It's just, you could tell probably that this is something that really matters to me. And I hope that you find that encouraging. And like I said, next week I'll tell you whether I got that guitar. And I'm thinking, I haven't decided what to do next week, but I'm thinking I might be sharing about emotional intelligence, which is something I'm just learning about, and something that I feel could help me because I have my own problems with anxiety and emotions. So we'll see if that's what I'm going to talk about, but I'll figure that out in a few days. But again, go check out lostartofplay.com. I think that's a great start for my resources, and I do have a free chapter that you could sign up to receive to get an idea of what it's about, and it's a very, very short read. It's not going to take you long to read it at all. All right, so that's all. Thank you for listening for today's episode, and do me a favor, please like, and if you subscribe, that'd be great. And if you really like this, please share it, because I really want to get this message out to as many people as possible. All right, so trying to figure out where I am. So, all right, so that's all. Thank you for listening again, and be sure to tune in next week. My episodes always are published 4:30 p.m. Mountain Time, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. All right, so together we will reach new heights in our lives and beyond, because there is hope, there is life, there is love, even in the midst of autism. Blessings to you. This is Dana Susan Beasley, signing off.